Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. In the heat of the pandemic, furniture experienced a massive boom in demand since everyone wanted to freshen up their homes. Today we're joined by Bob Sherwin, head of North American marketing at Wayfair. Gives us a glimpse of what it was like dealing with such a massive increase in demand in such a short amount of time, plus thoughts on what comes next.
Be prepared for a lot of different changes in demand patterns, particularly as we saw that in 2020, but then coming hopefully on the back half of 2021, that we have a lot of people in the population, hopefully everyone that wants a vaccine will have had a vaccine. And I think, we're going to see shifts in demand patterns. There's going to be some things that stick in COVID. Hopefully people continue to enjoy their homes as they have been during COVID, as they've been forced to. But I think there's going to be a lot more surges in demand, to higher levels for going out to eat.
Make sure and tune into Bob's presentation, Commerce Next, February 3rd. He'll be discussing measurement and attribution strategies to inform your marketing efforts. But for now, let's listen into his advice to retailers: 2 starts, 1 stop, heading into 2021. Bob, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a real treat to have you on the podcast. I literally, this week, placed my first order from Wayfair, and it's total coincidental. We were looking for an item, and there it was. It's funny story. I tried to place one in the summer, and the weirdness of the demand. I didn't get it fast enough. It was an outdoor thing, so I'm thrilled that I was able to experience your site firsthand. But again, welcome to the podcast. Let's jump right in. We kind of already have. But tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do at Wayfair.
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, thank you for placing that order. And hopefully the delivery is smooth and you're very satisfied with the actual item once it arrives, if it hasn't already. Generally, they arrive very quickly, so hopefully it has. So who am I? So I have the pleasure of leading our marketing department at Wayfair. So I've been here for about 7.5 years, and I support that entire organization. And what that entails is basically supporting the growth, building both awareness, our customer base, understanding of our brands for all of our brands and offerings. So Wayfair is our mass offering. We have over 10 million products on that catalog. It's basically for all styles, all price points and budgets. Very, very deep catalog. And then we also have a number of specialty brands, All Modern, Birch Lane, and Joss & Main, and then a luxury brand called Paragold. We have a number of other offerings like a B2B business and a bridal registry. So these are all things that, my organization is charged with, building awareness for and, growing the business.
Well, you said, what did you say, 7 years? You must have, how old is the business? That must be pretty close to the genesis of the business, right?
Well, technically, the 2 founders, so we're still founder-led, they began on this journey back in 2002. The Wayfair brand was officially launched in 2011. 2012 is when that really got going, and I joined about a year after that. And then some of these other brands that I'd mentioned existed slightly prior to that. Joss & Main and All Modern, for example, whereas Birch Lane and Paragold and our B2B offering really came to life after the Wayfair brand launch.
And were those other brands, the specialty brands, if I can call it that, were they organically driven, or were they acquisition, or kind of a mix of both?
They were all internally driven. So one of the benefits of our massive catalog for the Wayfair brand is that we have, we found that while that's all things to all people, we found that there was an unmet need for some of these more, specialty niche styles. And so what we could do to get them going is really just curate from the massive Wayfair catalog to start. And we found that there was a significant demand for these more niche audiences that wanted that curated experience because they had a very clear style perspective themselves, and these brands could map nicely to those styles.
And you came out of a bit of the consulting world, right? You were in McKinsey. I'm having the opportunity, I'm just reading his advanced copy now, Hubert Joly, who ran Best Buy, kind of continuing that that proud tradition of moving from McKinsey into being an operator. That was your background prior to arrival, right?
That's right. Yeah. I did my entire career prior to coming here was in consulting, and used the term operator. That is exactly what I was craving. It's hard to get that and hard to simulate that exactly in a consultant role. And I wanted to try my hand at it. And Wayfair was willing to put me in a position where I could be an operator from day one. And I never looked back because it's been a blast, because you still have all the great benefits of working at a firm like McKinsey, where you're surrounded by extremely smart people. You're working on very challenging problems. You're thinking about short-term operations, but then also long-term strategy. But you have the benefit, and for me, it's really rewarding to get to have a little more skin in the game, and not just counseling someone else, but actually like following your own advice and getting to see that through, and reaping the rewards when things go well, and getting to try it again when things, sometimes things inevitably don't go so well.
One last question just about the operations around Wayfair. Do you ship, obviously I'm in Toronto, so you obviously ship the Wayfair brand to Canada. Is it the case you ship internationally? Give me a sense of where you ship to in the world. And I guess a quick follow-up question. I believe you had a store, but that now has been closed. So just touch on those couple of things for me, just about Wayfair itself.
Yeah, where we have operated. So I mentioned our family of brands. Those are all based in the U.S., but we also have Wayfair online presence and delivery, and a very robust catalog in Canada, Germany, and the UK. And so for each of those countries that we operate in, we have a lot of in-house, we try to get as much of the product that we sell on those sites in our warehouses that are within those countries. We find that's the best model, and for both us, but also for the customer, because it allows us to get them the products as quickly as possible.
Yeah, right on. In fact, your warehouse is not too far from where I am. I've driven by it once or twice. So yeah, that's cool. So all right, well, listen. So the same question I've been asking for all the folks here on the Commerce Next virtual stage coming up. Is it February 4th? I think we're recording here in late January. So give me a sense, based on your experience and your thoughts on the way business is happening in the COVID era, pre-COVID, and the before time and post-COVID. 2 starts and 1 stop. Advice to the retailers listening from your perspective.
Sure. For anyone who wants it, what I would say for 2 starts, one of those would be to, coming off of this year where there was just tremendous change and like these massive macro events that required us all to be very nimble and very quickly react and think about how we need to adjust our operations to ensure we were, mitigating the downside risks and taking advantage of all this, in our category, this massive spike in demand.
Yeah.
So I think in 2020, it was a great year for us to really get operationally disciplined and be nimble and all that. So in 2021, what I want to make sure, what I would advise everyone to do is keep some of that discipline, right? Keep some of that, the good stuff that came from that, but then start investing again more in the long-term strategy. Oftentimes when I think about this, there's always this constant tension, and then you want to always check to make sure you're striking the right balance between being operationally excellent, day in and day out, and then thinking about the long-term horizon and what are the capabilities or platforms that you want to be building that may not benefit you for days, weeks, months, may take over a year to do. And so what I would say is start doing is or restart working on those longer-term efforts.
I've described the COVID era for retailers as either being hit by a shockwave of demand or a sledgehammer of closures. And I know from firsthand experience, the demand that you guys must have faced in all sorts of categories must have just been so challenging for your operations. And, the thing that struck me, and maybe it was your experience as well, is in the early days of the COVID crisis, we were all worried about liquidity in the very early days and started, cutting back on purchase orders. And that supply chain's harder to stop or harder to start up than it is to stop. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a very, interesting year for sure, but very, productive. And we're really proud and fortunate to have such a great customer service team that really did a lot of heavy lifting to keep up with that demand and do the best job we could, and continuing to deliver on a great customer promise, as well as our logistics teams who are actually, charged with moving the products and all that.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say to start doing is, really be prepared for a lot of different changes in demand patterns, particularly as like we saw that in 2020, but then coming hopefully on the back half of 2021, that we have a lot of people in the population, hopefully everyone that wants a vaccine will have had a vaccine. And I think, we're going to see shifts in demand patterns. There's going to be some things that stick in COVID. Hopefully people continue to enjoy their homes as they have been during COVID, as they've been forced to. But I think there's going to be a lot more like surges in demand, to higher levels for going out to eat and different, social activities and things like that. So
all the things we're missing now, travel, all the stuff we're not doing, right?
Exactly. I don't think it'll just go back to the same average baseline that it was in 2019. I think there's going to be some of those categories that all that pent up demand, people are going to be eating out more than they used to potentially.
Yeah.
And for the stop, one thing that we are thinking a lot about, and we always have, but we're being much more deliberate, is around like inclusivity and how we as marketers can ensure that we're being extremely thoughtful and creating a inclusive marketing playbook. And one of the things I would say, I would encourage everyone to stop doing is leveraging personas and over leveraging personas. Let's say they can be a very helpful tool to onboard team members and make sure they understand the brand and who the average customer is. But the average customer either doesn't exist or looks and feels very different to some of your great customers as well. So one of the things we're really trying to do is be mindful and, in the language we use to describe our customer, and ensure we're reminding everyone that there's many, many, many profile types that are shopping our brands. And that we shouldn't over-index on any one when we're designing our creative or thinking about landing page experiences or any of that.
That's interesting from your perspective, is in other words, how not to get too carried away with hyper segmentation, right? You are a mass accessible brand, and your creative and thinking needs to reflect that. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you want to be something for everyone, but you don't want to be so specific that you alienate any one group.
Yeah, at the same time, you have to stand for something, though, right? I mean, you got to Goldilocks that formula, so to speak.
That's right. Yeah, it's not an easy task.
Yeah. Well, all right. So you're on the virtual stage at Commerce Next coming up. What are you going to be talking about? What are you going to be doing?
Yeah, so very excited about the panel that I'm going to be sitting on. We're going to be discussing measurement and attribution. So how do you create really strong feedback loops to help inform your marketing strategy, to help confirm what's working well and derive insights around things that you should be doing more of and things that you should be doing less of as it relates to the impact that it's actually having on the business and ideally increasing the customer's propensity to purchase.
Right on. Well, trying to solve the attribution riddle could be a whole conference in and amongst itself. So it sounds like a great panel.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled that they've pulled together a great group of people, all with very strong perspectives, different areas of expertise, and so I'm happy to participate in that and share some of our learnings and provide some insights that we've found over our endless journey of continuing to improve our attribution methods.
All right. Well, right on. Well, look forward to that. And there'll be a link in the show notes to register. It's free for retailers and a modest charge for those who are our partners in retail. So look for that. And Bob, thanks for taking time out of your day here on a Friday to chat with the Voice of Retail. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you a little bit and hear your perspectives. And I wish you a great weekend and be safe and continued success.
Sounds great. Thanks for the time, Michael.
Today's podcast is one of the last of a series of Commerce Next episodes that have featured some of the fantastic speakers that took the stage January 20th, 27th, and still yet to come February 3rd, with snapshot insights into how they dealt with online e-commerce in the first year of the COVID era and lessons learned for the future. You can learn more and register for Commerce Next at commercenext.com. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Voice of Retail. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes, industry news, and insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating and review, as it really helps us grow so that we continue to get amazing guests onto the show. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of M.E. LeBlanc Company, Inc., and if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn, visit my website at meleblanc.co. Until next time, stay safe and have a great week.